In this episode, we'll be talking about how to move on from the past so that you can manifest a better future. So let's get started.
Hi, I'm Katie, and after many years as a struggling single mum, I transformed into a highly successful manifester with multiple businesses, better relationships, financial abundance, and way more peace, joy, and happiness in my life. Each week, I share the real secrets around how to manifest successfully, as well as the amazing and sometimes crazy lessons I've learned along the way, so that you can apply it all to your own manifesting, transforming your life from the inside out. This is That Manifesting Podcast.
Welcome back to another episode of That Manifesting Podcast. I'm really grateful to have you spending a little part of your day with me. And I'm really excited to share what we're going to talk about today, because it's something that's been a big part, not just of my own manifesting journey, but it's also something that I help a lot of my one-to-one clients with. And that's about how to truly move on from the past so that you can manifest a better future. So the good news is that truly moving on from the past requires one thing: change. But not just change in the form of the actions that you take. There's one underlying foundational thing that we have to change to manifest anything different in our lives. And that's what I'm going to be covering in this episode. So my intention is that by the end of these 30 minutes or less together, you'll know why, despite making changes to the actions that you take, things might not have manifested. And more importantly, I'll tell you what to do instead. So how's that for a cliffhanger? Okay, so when it comes to change, I know that there are some really weird people out there who love it. They love change. And by calling them weird, you probably know by now that I'm not one of them. No, I'm only joking. They're not weird, really. But there are people who absolutely love and embrace change. They're the sort of people that suddenly just leave their jobs to go travelling around the world, you know, the kind of people who move to a new town where they know absolutely no one. But then there are the other people on the opposite end of the spectrum who absolutely hate change. I think I'm somewhere in the middle. But I remember when I used to work in an office, and one thing that caused the most amount of upset was the dreaded desk move. So in my office, we had a lot of creatures of habit. They'd set up their desks and their chairs, and everything would be just right, and they'd be totally within their comfort zone. But then one day the manager would announce in a team meeting, they'd come in, they'd be like, "Great news, we're all going to move desks." And this was such an interesting thing for me to watch. So I was always comfortable with desk changes, so I saw it as an opportunity to get to know other people. But there were some people that would act as if you just told them that you'd kicked their dog in the face. That there was so much anger and upset and tears. It was just crazy to me. But that was all because of the thought of change. So yeah, there are people who love change. But I also know that for so many people, change is really intimidating. I speak to people that have left unhappy marriages, and they've been truly unhappy there, and they just wanted the whole relationship to be over. But even so, when certain events roll round, maybe it's going to a wedding or having their first Christmas where they haven't been with their ex, they still feel that pang of pain and nervousness at the prospect of something new and unexperienced. But most of the time, when they're through the other side, they feel like they've grown as a person and they feel better for it. So the challenge is whether you can embrace change, knowing it's the catalyst for personal growth and positive outcomes, particularly when it comes to manifesting. Because after all, the longer we resist change, the longer it takes to manifest what we actually want. But if you do know that change is vital to manifesting the future you want, and you know that when you get through the other side of it, things will probably be okay, why do we resist change so much? Well, For me, there are two big reasons that I've come across in the one-to-one mentoring work that I do with my clients. I'm sure there are many, many more by people that are way more qualified than me, but these are the reasons that I see people being stuck and not wanting to embrace change, even if that means manifesting a better future. And the first one is, there seems to be this psychological safety in staying where we are. So for many people, change can be frightening, and it's in our human nature to seek comfort and security at the most primitive level. So sometimes we'll stay in a situation that makes us desperately unhappy, because even though we're sad, it still gives us some level of psychological comfort and security. It's what we know. We know what to expect. We know what's going to happen next. Even if you're being badly treated by somebody or you're in a job that you hate, that still gives you some level of security, because you can predict how life is going to be and what's going to happen. Fear of the unknown can paralyze you into not taking any action towards any change. Imagine if I stood you in front of a pitch black room and you couldn't see what was inside, and I told you to go in without telling you what was in there. Some people would charge in. I wouldn't. I would run in the other direction. So yeah, others wouldn't take the risk even if it was something amazing inside. And it's exactly the same with change when we're manifesting. When you look at psychological safety, fear of the unknown, it goes against what change represents, which is something new, movement away from our old lives, something totally different. Being able to stay psychologically safe in where you are, but also embracing change and moving into the future, feel like two very tricky worlds to navigate all at the same time. So the second reason that I've seen that people avoid change, and it's probably the most common with my clients, is a thought of, what if I fail? What if I completely change my life and I fail? What if I leave this relationship and then I fail to find happiness? What if I leave this job I hate and end up in an even worse one? What if I start my own business and I fail to get any clients? That fear of failure does keep so many people stuck. Now, the interesting thing is that a lot of the thought processes behind those two reasons actually happen subconsciously, the part of the mind responsible for manifesting. If you ask someone if they want to change their life for the better, the chances are they'll say yes. But underneath, there could be one or both of those resistances happening towards change. And if that's happening subconsciously, then that's the place that they're manifesting from, not in alignment with the future that they really want. So there's a story that I share with my clients. I think I might have shared it on the podcast before. I'm not sure. But if I have, I'm sorry. I am going to tell it again because I just love this story, because it really brings to life what I've already spoken about today about change. And the story goes like this. There was a man and he was walking down the street and he could hear a dog crying, like really crying, like it was in real pain. And as he continued walking down the street, the crying got louder from the dog. And eventually he came across this house, and laying out the front of the house was a dog. And it was the dog that was crying. It was just laying there, crying and whimpering, really, really distressing. And the owner of the dog was sat next to it. So the man walked up to him and said, "Sir, why is your dog crying like that? What's wrong with him?" And the man replied, "Oh, don't worry about it. He's laying on a nail." And the man looked at him and said, "But if there's a nail that's hurting him and he's just laying on it, why doesn't he move?" The owner of the dog thought for a moment and then said, "Well, he thinks it would be more painful to move than to stay where he is." Now that is a story. The essence of it tells us that sometimes, just like the dog, we might complain about our circumstances, we might feel unhappy, and yet we still might not take the necessary steps to change our situation, because the security of staying where we are, despite the discomfort, might still be preferable to the effort, uncertainty, and potential pain involved in making a change. Now, I don't know if you're like me, but I've had friends in the past that have been desperately unhappy in a relationship or a job, and every time we meet up, we have the same conversations about how difficult it is and how unhappy they are. And when you ask them why they don't leave the relationship or why they don't change the job, they never really have that answer for you, or they come up with some sort of excuse as to why something won't change or they can't change it. So people will be in pain in their lives. People will feel uncomfortable. They'll even share that pain and that discomfort with other people. And yet when it comes to taking action to change, they won't do it because it feels like that would be more painful than what they're going through right now. So the question that we have to ask ourselves is, how much pain is too much? When will you decide that it's time to get off that nail? Even though change might be painful, when will you move off of that nail in the pursuit of giving to yourself and manifesting a better future? So just for a moment, I'm going to imagine that you've made the decision to get off the nail. Yay, go you. So what next? You've made the decision to change your life. What does happen next? Well, sometimes when people make the decision to change their lives, they make a big mistake. What they focus on are the actions. So if they're going through a breakup, they might decide, I'm not going to call my ex. I'm not going to be that social media stalker looking at what they're doing and who they're doing it with. They decide not to talk about them to their friends. Now, all of these actions show that they are trying to change and move on from the past and into a brighter future. If you can relate to this, you might have found that even though you did those things and made those changes after a breakup, you still didn't manifest anything new or better in your life. It's a conversation I've had so many times with people, particularly where they will say to me, Katie, I've truly left that relationship behind. I don't have any interactions with them. I don't call them. I don't text them. I don't look at their social media. I don't ask their friends about them. I don't talk to my friends about them. It's been months and I still haven't met my person. And there's a big reason for that. And that's because if you want to manifest something different in your life, you not only have to change the actions you take, but also the identity of who you are. Manifesting what you want is about becoming the future version of you who already has what you want and doing that now. If you want something different, you have to do something different, think something different, but more importantly, you have to be someone different. Now, that doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with the person that you are if you want to stay right where you are. But what's got you to this point, the person that you are that's got you right here, is not going to get you to where you want to be, because that requires change. Because if it didn't, you'd already have it by now. It's not only actions that change manifesting outcomes, it's a combination of thoughts, actions, and beliefs that are all driven from our identity. So say you'd been through a breakup and you wanted to meet someone new. The identity you may have adopted subconsciously is someone who is single. And you're backing that identity up with your actions. So you're not contacting your ex, you're not checking their social media, etc., etc. And all of that is great. But all that will do is keep you in that identity of single. So all you manifest is more singledom. If you want to manifest a new relationship, then it's about adopting the identity now of the future you who is in that happy relationship. Are you that person right now? Are you taking the actions of that person? Or are you stuck as the person trying to move on from that old relationship and just taking single person actions? If you are, that's fine, but you'll be rooted in that place because everything you're doing is purely about trying to move on from the past and not about changing and calling in your future relationship. Now, moving on from the past and calling in your future are two very different things. When thinking about identity, the question to ask is, who is that person that's in a successful and happy relationship where there's unconditional love, mutual effort, trust, happiness? What does that person do? How do they show up in their life? Once you start to look at that future version of yourself, sometimes you'll see there are glaring differences between the person you are today, who might just be trying to get by and move on from the past. So our identity plays the critical part of change and truly moving on from the past so that we can manifest a better future. I see so many people who are desperate to move on from the past, so they're doing all the right things, but they forget to call in the future by taking inspired actions, by changing their thoughts and beliefs, but most importantly, by evolving their identity so that they're in true alignment with that future version who already has what they want. So look, when you want to manifest a different life and change and truly move on from the past whilst also calling in your future, just to warn you, this is an ongoing journey. It's never going to stop. It's not like you get to one day and think, okay, I'm the perfect person, I'm the greatest version of myself, and so now I don't need to do anything. If you want to manifest an amazing life and keep manifesting an amazing life, you're always going to need to evolve and grow, take inspired actions, challenge your thoughts and beliefs, and continue to evolve your identity as the things in your life change. And that was true of me in my own life. When I first split up with the father of my daughter, I had no confidence, and I mean zero confidence. When I was first alone, it was that bad. I couldn't even go food shopping alone with my daughter. I was always so worried that something was going to happen or I'd get something wrong. I was just so insecure, just about everything really, and just doing anything on my own with my daughter. I always had that worst case scenario always building up in my head. And so I'd go and I'd drop my daughter off at my mum's house and she'd take care of her whilst I went and did the food shopping. Even things like housework. I was even fearful of getting on with my housework whilst my daughter was there because I couldn't seem to navigate a way where I could give her attention but also get things done that I needed to do. I just wasn't prepared for life as a single parent, and I didn't feel at all ready to move into that life. But over time, I knew that something had to change. I've always had this natural stubborn streak where I really try to challenge myself and push myself forward. And even though I felt that weight of insecurity, I knew that I had to make a change, even though it felt scary and painful. So I did set myself a challenge, and it was my ultimate challenge at the time. And that was to take my daughter abroad on holiday on my own, just me and her, navigating the airport, transfers, hotel resort, all of that stuff, just me and her. Now that might seem like nothing too special to some people listening, but for me, it was huge. It was massive. And when I started, it just at the time felt like a mountain I could never climb. I couldn't even go to the supermarket on my own with her, let alone going on holiday to a different country. I couldn't think about the holiday in that moment because that was just a change too far. What I had to do was focus on the little changes that I could make every single day that were gradually building me up to that one ultimate goal of taking her on holiday by myself. And I also had to navigate the fact that I didn't have the money to go on holiday with her. I just did not have it. I was a struggling single parent. At times, it did feel like the odds were stacked against me because I didn't have the money, I didn't have the confidence, but I had to start somewhere because I knew that that was what I wanted to manifest. So I started out by challenging myself to just small, manageable actions. At first, I thought, okay, I'm just going to take her for a walk around the estate all by myself, like a dog. But obviously I didn't put her on a lead. And I just want to put it across. I'm kind of making it sound like my daughter was some sort of devil child, but she wasn't, I promise. She was gorgeous, lovely little child. This was all on me. It was my insecurities, my fears that stopped me from being brave enough to do things for the longest time. So I started off by just taking her for a walk around the estate, and I would gradually build that up and think, okay, what can I challenge myself to do now? And it was maybe taking her for dinner by myself, again, something I'd never done before. And all of those things were hard. They didn't always go perfectly, but I did it anyway. And I kept pushing myself out of my comfort zone. And added to that was the financial side. I knew that I needed to manifest more money if I wanted to pay for this holiday that I was going to take us on. And so I had to start looking for ways to increase my income. I focused on getting a promotion, taking the right actions to get me there. I'd work really hard because we had a performance-related bonus scheme, and I knew that if I could get a certain level of bonus, I could pay for the holiday. So all of these little things were totally within my control. But here's the thing, at the same time, I had to evolve my identity. Just taking the actions that I did, like walking my daughter around the block like a little puppy, wouldn't have been enough to manifest the holiday. I had to show up as that holiday Katie right then and there because it was her that would keep things moving forwards. It was her that had the right subconscious thoughts and beliefs to manifest the holiday. It was her that achieved the highest bonus possible because of how she showed up. Just taking actions would have helped me move on from that past of being afraid, single, unconfident, but it was evolving my identity that actually helped me manifest what I wanted. I had to establish who was Katie that took her daughter on holiday alone, and when I was able to pinpoint what future Katie thought, what future Katie felt, what she believed, how she showed up, and gradually, little bit by little bit, I started to adopt that future identity in the present moment. And that's how things changed, like truly changed, because within 18 months, I'd built my confidence and my bank balance to the point where I took her on holiday, all on my own, to Cyprus. We went for the most amazing holiday, and I did it. This was the girl that 18 months before couldn't even go to the supermarket alone. I had that little confidence. Yet here I was, 18 months later, taking her to the airport, getting on a plane, keeping her occupied on the journey, getting to the resort, just having a lovely time. And that is a memory that is just so magical for me, even now. And it's one of my biggest achievements because it was truly what changed everything for me. Having that one goal was what started my real journey with manifesting, and without even realising. I wasn't using the term manifesting back then, but that's what I was doing. And it's something I've continued to live by. But here's the thing, I still have to work. I still have to do the work. I still have work to do. And this is actually something that I'm going to ask you for your help with. So if you're listening to this, please help me out and DM me. So for the longest time, I've had this massive block about going out for dinner by myself. I can go out for breakfast, I can go out for lunch, I can go for a McDonald's, anything like that. I'm quite happy to do that on my own. But there is something about taking myself to a proper restaurant at night and going for dinner alone that freaks me out. Okay, I just feel like I wouldn't know where to look. I wouldn't know what to do whilst I was waiting for my food. I don't want to read a book. That's what everyone says. I don't want to do that. I feel like people would be looking at me and judging me like, oh, look at her, Billy, no mates, all on her own. But I also know that this is something I have to do to evolve my identity. So now you know I'm right here with you. Just like there are things that you might be struggling with in your life, there are still things that I struggle with in my life. Even though I've manifested so much of what I wanted, I still have work to do. And that is one of those things. So please, if you have ever taken yourself out for dinner by yourself, or you'd like to do it too, I would love your support, your encouragement. I really want to try and do this. I'm going to think by the end of the year. And so I need people to keep me accountable. And I promise that when I do it, I'll document it on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. So if you're not already following me, search for me. My accounts are called The Manifesting Mindset, and that's on any platform, or you can click the link in the show notes for this episode. But honestly, I'm serious when I say I need your help, because I honestly don't know if I will do it by the end of the year without that support, because I just have this strange irrational fear of taking myself out for dinner by myself. So yeah, do get in touch. Give me your tips, your encouragement, your positivity. Oh my God, my palms are actually sweating right now thinking about it. In some ways, I'm hoping none of you DM me, because then I don't have to do it. But no, seriously, no, I need to do it. I need to do it by the end of the year. So do get in touch. Look, it's natural when you're thinking about change. It's natural to doubt that things can really be different. It's natural to doubt that it will turn out the way that you want. But it's also important to recognise that by staying where you are, all you're doing is keeping yourself stuck in your current circumstances for longer. If you want your life to change, if you want to manifest something different, it's time to get off that nail and get to the other side of change. Evolve your identity, evolve your actions, your thoughts, your beliefs. Keep challenging yourself, and always remember that there's such a huge difference between just moving on from the past and actually calling in your future. I believe that you can do it. I've done it, and if I can do it, anybody can. I can promise you that. I'm just your biggest cheerleader from afar. So let's do this thing. DM me and let me know your tips on going out for dinner alone. I really, really would appreciate them, even if my voice doesn't sound like I would, because I'm very scared. I honestly would appreciate them. Just treat this episode as your sign to reevaluate where you are in life and figure out whether you're just moving on from the past or you're truly doing the work to attract your future. Think about whether you've truly gotten off of that nail, or whether it's something that you feel like you still need to do. Either way, I'm here for you.
So that's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for joining me. If you've enjoyed listening, I'd be so grateful if you'd subscribe and leave a review, because it really does help me to reach more people. I've left some links in the show notes so you can connect with me, or you can grab one of my manifesting resources. Until next week, sending you lots of love, light, and manifesting vibes.